Welcome to the Fear and Greed Afternoon Report for Friday, the 25th of February, 2022. I'm Michael Thompson. Every afternoon, we'll bring you the 5 things that happened today that you need to know about. So let's jump into it. Story number 1, Russia's invasion of Ukraine continues, and it's a story that's unfolding even as we speak. Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, has reportedly come under attack from missiles, and an aircraft was shot down over the city. The country's foreign minister has tweeted today, "Last time our capital experienced anything like this was in 1941 when it was attacked by Nazi Germany." Now, the Ukrainian president says more than 130 people have been killed in the conflict so far, although that toll is expected to rise as Russian forces advance on the capital. President Zelensky has vowed to remain in Kiev. Story number 2 is linked to this, obviously. It's the political response to the crisis. Prime Minister Scott Morrison has announced further sanctions on Russian oligarchs, billionaires whose economic power is important to Russia. He also hit out at reports China is easing trade restrictions on Russia when much of the world is doing the exact opposite. He says China shouldn't throw a lifeline to Russia when they're invading another country. Meanwhile, earlier today, US President Joe Biden announced new sanctions targeting Russian banks, oligarchs, and high-tech sectors. The sanctions followed a meeting with the leaders of Britain, Canada, France, Italy, and Japan, as well as the European Commission and NATO. There are still further sanctions available, including restrictions on Russia's energy sector and cutting Russia out of the SWIFT payment system, which allows for international bank-to-bank transfers. Scott Morrison has actually called for global support for this move, the cutting out of the SWIFT payment system, but there is apparently disagreement in Europe over what's considered the trump card of international sanctions. Story number 3 is the markets and the obvious impact that the crisis is having. Considering the hammering, though, that the local share market copped yesterday, the S&P/ASX 200 had a much better day today, closing up ever so slightly, rising at 0.1% to 6,998 points. It still leaves the market down 3.1% for the week and 2.4% over the last 12 months. It's been a bumpy ride, and it's unlikely to change for some time. The biggest mover on the ASX 200 today was family location sharing app Life360, which rose 21.4%, recovering virtually everything it lost this week. We talked about this one in this morning's program. Life360 dropped sharply on the back of security concerns over a similar tracking product from Apple, but made back most of those losses today. But probably the most remarkable story as far as markets are concerned is the volatility on Wall Street overnight. Wall Street followed European and Asian stocks lower initially before staging an incredible recovery. The Dow Jones rose 0.3%, the S&P 500 was up 1.5%, and the Nasdaq was up 3.4%. Quite incredible. Story number 4, and moving away from Ukraine, Harvey Norman reported its profit today. The bottom line dropped slightly, hurt by lockdowns, but things have picked up thanks to the strength in the home renovation market and ongoing strength in sales across the lifestyle and tech categories. It's a company that's weathered the pandemic pretty well, including today's 3% plus jump in share price. It's trading around 15% higher than its pre-pandemic level. Another one worth a mention is transport and logistics group Brambles. It warned that the global pallets shortage will go on for another year, and it lifted its prices, which helped it claw back soaring timber costs. The company reported a small rise in profit. And finally, story number 5 comes from our friends on Wall Street. Block, the company that bought Australian buy now, pay later group Afterpay, announced its first quarterly net loss in 18 months this morning. But revenue hit a new high, almost doubling from a year earlier, triggering a 32% jump in the company's share price. So the local holders of Block stock, and that's most of the people who used to own Afterpay, went from disappointment to joy pretty quickly. Block CEO Jack Dorsey said he would integrate buy now, pay later deeply into its Square and Cash app services this year. That's it for the afternoon report for Friday, the 25th of February, 2022. Sean Aylmer and I will be back tomorrow morning for the Saturday edition of Fear and Greed. I'm Michael Thompson. Enjoy your evening.